Welcome to YouTube Mall Builders Tuesday Night Live Show. Tonight we got Miles Hale. He's doing a home layout update on his own layout at home, which hopefully I'm right in saying it's ON30.
That's correct.
Hopefully it is, since he's got some awfully big buildings in there, but yeah, we've been having a little technical difficulty tonight, so yes, we are starting a little bit late. Appreciate y'all hanging in there with us. But want to say go to YouTubeMallBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules for the Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Those start at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The Thursday and the once a month Saturday show starts at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And also while you're there, be sure and click on the eMag so you can sign up for email notification when it comes out. JD and his team do a really fantastic job on putting out a good magazine there, so be sure and sign up for your email notification. So now, without any further ado, I'm going to turn this thing over to Miles and let him give us his update on what he's been doing. All right, Miles.
Oh, back just in the nick of time, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I've done some of the chat room groups here on YouTube Model Builders, and I've talked about one of the things I found out. The first thing I want to talk about is I always try to admit my mistakes because I want everybody to understand I'm a model builder like everybody else, and I do make mistakes. But when I make them, to me, they are huge, and I have to solve it or I go absolutely berserk. One of the problems that I had was I had an operating session with 3 other model builders, my first kind of shakedown thing, and I got caught in the trap that I think a lot of model builders get caught in, and that is that we have too many cars on the railroad. I know a lot of model builders that have as many cars hanging on their wall as they have on the railroad, and the railroad is just packed. And when you go to operate, that's one big, huge problem because you can't move cars. You need room on the railroad in the yards and in the sidings to move. And when we tried operating, one of the big problems we had was that about 3/4 of the way into the session, we were just locked up. It was like gridlock in LA or whatever, New York. I don't drive in those cities, but I've heard that it's really bad, so maybe we can all relate to it. But so the first thing that I've got to do is remove a lot of cars from the railroad. And I have not done that really yet, but that's my next step in terms of doing operations. I've been extremely lucky that both the NCE system and the SCAB, which is the battery operated locomotives, and I've got about half and half now. Eventually I'll move over to the batteries, but they are both working extremely well. I built this railroad back in the time when NCE was the main thing that was available. SCAB was really, I don't even know that it had come out for distribution yet at the point that I started the layout. But now, of course, they're doing much better. We have 10 Valley, we have Deltang, we have other systems on batteries that you can use and you can operate with. So I think the battery is the coming thing in the future, and that's why I'm trying to change a bunch of my locomotives over. Okay, so the other problem was I got terrifically discouraged because I did not feel like my layout was going to look like I wanted it to look. I've made a huge change in my thinking. All my railroads have been Colorado mountains, and I made this huge change to do big cities. And the city I picked, of course, was my hometown of Kansas City, and I'll just change over a little bit so you can see what's going on there. And I'll walk in the railroad room while you're looking at that. What I have discovered, and this is what I talked about on some of the chat room discussions that we've had over the past few weeks, is I needed to find a way to do these, whoa, hope I didn't lose connection. There we go.
Yeah, I still got you.
Okay, good. My iPad kind of went bonkers on me there. And still is. Come on, pick me up. Thank you. Anyway, so you can see over on the far wall over here, and I'll kind of get in the picture eventually. Where's my hand? How far over do I have to get? I'm locking up. There we go. Okay. You can see over on the far wall, I have a number of buildings. And those buildings are photographs. I went down to the bottoms area of Kansas City along the Missouri River, on both the east and the west sides of Kansas City. We have a huge area that's flat. It's the floodplain before the bluffs of Kansas City. And that area, which is probably maybe only an eighth of a mile or less in some places, flat, is where all the railroads tended to run. And we call it the east bottoms and west bottoms, obviously because of the size of the city. So we are extremely fortunate in some ways in that a lot of these buildings have been saved, and they are available still to photograph. The bad news is that a lot of these buildings are really dilapidated. And so I wanted to create them or put them on my railroad because they are the buildings that existed that the railroad would run into. And getting them built or constructed or whatever you want to call it. Losing my controller here for some reason. I don't know why. Let's try it again. Anyway, I had to go down and take these photographs and renew the buildings on my camera or on the computer with Photoshop, which I did. See if I can get a little bit better focus on that camera for you, but hopefully, maybe. Oh, let's give me a better shot at it.
All right, we're on the camera that's behind you, Miles.
Okay.
On the far side. Where the
all right, and I want to be on the other one, so let's go on this one. There we go. Now you should have a shot of the buildings.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went in and I photographed these buildings. I went down there and photographed them as well as I could. A lot of them had to be squared up because obviously I was looking up at them, so they had converging lines, and that was a lot of Photoshop work, but it's not too bad. And to me, it's become a lot of fun to do. And a lot of the buildings I have put loading dock doors in where there were no loading docks. I've taken loading docks out where there were loading docks. Just kind of to suit my needs for switching. The biggest thing about these buildings is that they really eliminated a lot of the depression that I had over this railroad. I didn't do anything in this railroad for almost 9 months because I couldn't solve this building problem, this background problem. I was trying to print on paper, and paper, I don't care how well I stuck it down or what kind of adhesives I used, I could not get the paper to lay flat and stay flat. And so it was back to the drawing board, and I just kind of walked out of the room and left it. Once I discovered this technique, the problems really have been solved. I mean, to me, and I don't know how it's looking to you all, but I hope it's looking pretty good. Let's see if I can pan over a little bit.
All right, Miles, can you turn your volume down just a little bit on your mic there? Saying it's getting kind of bad, over-modulating.
All right, how about that? Is that better?
All right, we'll try that right there. See, somebody let me know out there in the chat.
It's down a little bit. At any rate, this is done on a material called Centra, which is a plastic material. And I can pull one of the walls that's not attached to it off. I hope. Let's see which camera I'm on. I should be in the front one. See if I can get by in front of this camera. It's tight in here as it is in most roads. The Centra is a white PVC board, and this is extruded. In other words, they take the PVC and they foam it, and then they put it in a press and press it out. It comes out at about 1/8 of an inch, or as they call it, 3 millimeter. And it has a little bit of a texture on it. but it is quite flat in its, it doesn't have a sheen. It's what we want, it's a matte finish. So once I take the photograph and apply it in the size that I want, I send that out to my printer, and I'll give you the information on the printer here in a minute. But I send this out to my printer, and then he prints them out. And as you can see with me standing here, this building is almost 3 feet across and a good 34 inches high. I'm trying for about 32 to 34 inches in height on all my buildings. A lot of the windows that were in this building, and this was not certain segment prints, this was something else, I don't know what it was. These doors were taken off of another photograph, another building, and dropped in. The signage was all put on in Photoshop. A lot of these windows were not there, they were boarded up. So what I did was I went in and I selected some windows that were good and just started copying them and dropping them in over the windows that were boarded up, which gave me good windows. And then the same thing over here on the Sears building. I had a lot of panels in here that had a lot of damage. They just weren't quite right. So I just picked good panels, came back in, redid them. In both cases, or in actually all the cases up and down this wall here, these buildings are larger than they are in real life. This building, I think, was only about 5 stories or so. It's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm trying for about 9 stories in most of them. That's how the height is in most of the buildings down there. But some of them that are left that I can photograph and get good photographs of are shorter. So I just simply come in and I strip floors in. And I did that on all of these buildings down here. None of them were this height at the start. As a matter of fact, showing Williams here, you can almost see my lines. This is some of my earlier work, and I didn't get the lines in between wiped out, but I picked up these 2 floors and put them up here and just added to it. And I had a suggestion from somebody else, which I think was quite good, in that he said, why did you print the fire escapes when I could, I could have gone to Tish Hitchy, which I have some in stock, and put their fire escapes on there and made them actually 3D relief, and it would have been very easy in Photoshop to wipe that fire escape out. So that's what I really should do. And in a lot of these cases now, in my more modern work, I mean, this only covers 4 weeks. I've been at it, just about 4 or 5 weeks. But now I'm starting to not print the overhangs that are there, that are present in real life, and I'm starting to leave it open so that I can put a 3-dimensional overhang on here. And more 3-dimensional things I add to it, the less people will be able to tell that this is a photograph. The other thing I'm doing, and I hope, let's see if, move again a little bit. A little bit better.
What version of Photoshop are you using, Miles?
Actually, I'm cheap. I'm a model railroader. I'm sorry. I don't believe in doing the subscription that Adobe has out right now. First of all, I can't afford it. I'm a fixed income now that I've retired, so $50 a month adds up to a lot of money. I'm on version 3, Photoshop 3. I also have Photoshop Elements. I think I'm on 11 on it, and I think either 12 or 13 is already out. But I can do this exact same work in Elements that I do in regular Photoshop. As a matter of fact, I just got back from Canada a couple of weeks ago, and we shot one of the Train Masters episodes on doing this very thing, taking the building in Photoshop and creating it for printing. And it'll be on Train Masters before too long. I'm sorry. That's why I'm not doing it here. I don't want to be. Yes. All right, what's wrong with the audio? Too loud? All right. On automatic, it should be doing fine. Oh, I don't care whether I'm in focus or not. Who cares about me? Big deal. So anyway, what I wanted to show you here was one thing I am starting to do is I'm starting to print. I'm taking this side strip right here on the front and printing it again. And I'll show you that picture of that in just a second. So that I can then make a return. So this building is actually setting 1.5 inches out from this building. This building is setting 1.5 inches out here, and here I just stripped the side off and put it on here, so I actually had some relief. And again, I did the same thing here. This building, although you can't tell, I haven't put this one back in, but it's setting out about 1.5 inches. So I get a little relief, and I like that undulation of the buildings moving in and out. Again, it just adds to the believability of the building. And let's see, let's turn over here a little bit. We hope we get whole quality on this thing. All right, is that better? I've turned it down some more. I've turned it down some more. Can you hear me? All right. Okay. Well, I keep cutting mine back, so I hope that's doing what they want.
They're saying sound is better.
Okay. The building here was 3 floors. I added 2 floors to it. This is something I'm trying to do nowadays in the last week or two. I'm trying to come in here, and anytime when I have a repeat, because obviously I took this floor and added it twice. But what I did then was I came in and I changed the heights of some of these curtains, so the shades, so that they would not have a repeat pattern. That's one thing I'm starting to get much more conscious of, is the repeat pattern once I try to copy these floors in. Just to show you that there is a big difference. This little building right here is HO scale, much smaller than the others. It's still a good building, and what I can do with that then is I can come in here, and if I put this building behind, it's going to drop when I let go, but you can tell. If I put that one up behind, it just looks like that city goes way back much further. And I have some of those old Walters backgrounds that we're going to put behind, where we're playing peekaboo with some of this stuff to make it work. Now you might say, well, okay, that's good, Miles. You're making big buildings, but what do I do? Because I don't really need buildings on the background. I need buildings, real buildings. Well, in that case, I'll flip you guys around here, hopefully without losing you. And this building right here, I just changed out. This was the building that was frustrating the heck out of me because I had a paper side on here and it was bubbling all over the side. It bubbled all the way down this alleyway where we go into where the track is. So I had my guy print up some brick paper again, brick sheet on this, and then I just glued this onto the side, and now I have a solid brick side that will work. I had the same problem on my wife's building, on Fran's building. She has Lux and Mercantile here. There we go. I don't know if I can, yeah, I can pan out a bit. So what you can see here is I've got a side stuck on here because the brick that I had on there just wasn't all that great. These are DPM modular pieces, and they're extremely expensive to start just putting them on wholesale over here. So I had glued up just some Holgate and Reynolds, some old Holgate and Reynolds sheet, and that was not adhering as well, and it didn't look as well as I liked either. So now I'm going to take this side, I'll break these sides that are in there out, bring them in a little bit so that this white edge won't show. That's the other thing I've learned about this PVC, the Sintra, and that's S-I-N-T-R-A. Just think about your sinner for using this because it's a big cheat. But nonetheless, Sintra. It stains with magic markers. So all those Pantone and art markers and whatever, I just pick an art marker that's very close in color to the brick that I'm using, and I can actually stain this edge or any of the edges that I need. And I'll see if I can get down tight enough for you here. Sorry about moving around, but I think it'll give you a better look at it. Over a little bit, there we go. All of these edges in here were stained before they were glued up, and Crazy Glue ACC works great for gluing these joints together. The other thing that I have, swing around again, this is something that I'm doing now with my prints. This is one of the latest of the big prints that I've made. It's going to be molding plow. But you can see on the sides, here I've taken a strip from this side, actually it's from that side, but it gives me a nice straight edge here. When I cut and put that together, I'll have a relief that building then can set out from the wall on both sides. So that's what I mean by, I took this strip and just put it over here, copied it, and put it again on Photoshop. It's easy to do. And I've got now a piece that will give me the relief that I need to stick out. And if we back up a bit, come back and show you the front. Some of you may recognize this front of this building from the Train Masters episode where I was talking about doing the big city. That's the front facade in the street setting. And to me now, this building looks much better now that I have this brick and it's all solid. And I can do the same thing then with my building in the back here. I'll be able to have sides printed for this building, and I can actually do three-dimensional buildings. So it's not a technique that's strictly limited to background buildings. As a matter of fact, if we look at the building that's facing right here almost, get your stand around. This is the building that's going to be the KCS building, and it's so big I can't even get it all in the shot. But these are all printed sides. This is one side here. That's all one sheet. I've cut out already, I don't know how many windows. Now the building, the real building down in the bottoms has, I don't know, something like 500 or 600 windows. Getting caught up down here. There we go. There we go. Come up and show you. But the other thing that I've done is I've gone in with my Cricut, and I actually cut my mullions on these the window, painted it red to match up. This is just a piece of angled plastic. I'll get it out of there. That's going to be my sill. So I just stick that on there. And then I've got a piece of, go back in, there we go. Got a piece of manila. I just went out and bought some manila paper because I thought the shades would be better if they were slightly off-white instead of being white like this. So all my window shades will be the manila, and they'll be at different heights. And then my black, of course, back in there is going to hide whatever's going on. The thing here is I can also then come in and I could pick a window or two or three or whatever and cut out. This is not an unbeaten board, but I can cut out, and I could actually put an office insert in so that you have a three-dimensional office working. And we were talking about updates on the road, and that's pretty much the biggest of the updates that I've been doing. Bring around one more. This guy is just, to me, he's, I avoid the word awesome because everybody seems to use awesome nowadays. But this thing is just, in my opinion, awesome.
That's pretty awesome.
This thing is like 7 feet across, and it's again about 32 inches tall. We've got down the insert here. Now, there's one thing that was still disappointing to me because now, one thing leads to another. I solved the problem with the backgrounds. All of a sudden, I have a way to make all of my backgrounds, and I think, I think that's looking pretty good. I think all the rest of these are looking pretty good. But the thing that was bothering me then was, let me do this so you get a better view of it. Hopefully, I can shut the door with all the cables going through here. There we go. Now, to me, the only thing that disturbs all the look of it is I got this beautiful mahogany door, which a friend of mine in Louisville gave me, and I just cannot bring myself to paint it. It's too beautiful a door. So I don't want to lose it. But what do I do? Because now I have a big blank space here where I don't have buildings. So I sat down and, when you're a model maker, you make models. And I don't know if you can see this or not. I hope you can. This is my doorway. And this is a representation of that elevator. And this is my platform that goes up and down. So what I did was I put a link on it that it will now pull, and I'm going to put another background here on a track so that when that platform is lifted, my background will go back out of the way. When you let it down for operations as it is now, it will pull the background into position. So
Oh, that is so slick. That is so slick.
Yeah, I'm like that.
So that'll give me buildings all the way around the entire room, which is what I really want. I've said it several times before on other shows and other times, but you need that aha experience to get your first thing when you come into the railroad, because you want your railroad to be remembered. I always tell railroaders that when we used to have the classes and everything else, I'm sorry, but the railroaders are not going to remember you. But they will remember that you're the guy with the 30-foot bridge. You're the guy with the 7-foot mountain. You're the guy with that beautiful animated, gas station or whatever it happens to be. You're going to have something in your railroad that's just aha. Well, my aha wants to be that I dwarf you. That when you come into my railroad, you feel like you're walking into the bottoms and all the buildings are taller than you are. And you're in the big city, and it's, as my old friend John Lawrence down in San Antonio always says, it's the canyons of New York. Well, this is the canyons of the bottoms of Kansas City, because they really are. All those buildings tower over you when you drive through them or ride through them, and the trains are dwarfed by them. Let's face it, a 9-story building pretty much dwarfs a barely 1-story boxcar or engine. So that's what I want, is I want these buildings to be huge and big, and really dwarf you and grab you and make you feel like, yeah, I'm in Kansas City, and yeah, I'm in the bottoms. So anyway, this just will help to add to my illusion that you're in the bottoms. I'm probably going to have to remake this because it's not tall enough. I need it to be tall enough, obviously, to go above my door here. So I'm going to remake probably another elevator and get it up much taller so that when it pulls across, it will pull across and hide that doorway. But I'll exceed my 9-floor limit. One of the reasons I'm holding to the 9 stories is that in the early days, at the times I'm represented here, 50s and 60s, the airport for Kansas City was just across the river. The river ran right beside the tracks, right across the river from the bottoms. And the pilots hated our airport because they had to fly over the bluffs, which are quite tall. And with city buildings there, they had to fly over and drop immediately coming across the river, Missouri River, and into the airport. It was quite a trick for pilots to pull off the landing. But anyway, that's why the buildings down there were a little bit lower, because they couldn't be any higher in such close proximity to the airport. And that's another thing. I just ordered a whole bunch of LEDs that flash, and I've got to come in here and put flashing LEDs on top of all my buildings, because they all had to be, safety. I don't know what they call the red lights that flash, but I need them on top of my buildings to make things look right. So that's my next thing to do, is to try and add a little more animation, especially from lighting. I'm going to try not to put any buildings in here that don't have some kind of light in them. My other project over the past several weeks, give you an idea of that. I really believe, and I think this is a good idea for a lot of model railroaders, I had this room wired so that one switch turned everything off. You can do that with a stator, or there's other names for it, but what happens is that when my switch throws, it's not really turning the lights off. It's throwing this relay that's a super heavy 3-contact. Some people use the 3-phase stator that would start like a big table saw or something. Anyway, that gives you 3 circuits. So I could put the lights on one circuit, I put the rail in another circuit, and I put my rail outlets on another circuit, and that's the way he wired it. And that was good. But now with LED technology, I really would like to be able to do some night lighting, some mood lighting. I'd like to be able to have the railroad lights, the ambient lights in the buildings or whatever, stay on, even though I have my overheads turned off. So one of my projects here about 4 or 5 weeks ago was to go back in and rewire my circuitry. And that's what I've pretty much done. So now, if they'll work, and I hope they will, this is going to get really dark really quick, but hopefully, well, maybe a little too dark.
Miles.
Yeah, it's dark. Let's see if I can open it. No, I can't get this lens to open up anymore. Anyway, trust me, that's blue lights. It's evening in here, and once I get that low light level, that's going to give me an opportunity then to come in with a whole lot of ambient light in all of the buildings. That's why I want some offices lit. I want. All right, I'll get you a different camera if I can find my iPad wherever I laid it. Walked away from it. Yeah, probably so. All right, how's that better? Can you see? Okay. This camera actually has a super wide. It's got like a 10mm lens, so you're looking at almost all of the road in one shot with that camera. But the one you're on right now. But at any rate, I've got a lot of lights to add in all of these buildings. A lot of these came from Menards. Those are people that aren't familiar with Menards. Menards is making both HO now and O-scale buildings. I started off with O-scale buildings because the president of Menards actually is a Lionel railroader. But at any rate, he made O-scale, which I bought a lot of his buildings, and now he's making HO buildings, many of the same ones. And it's really nice. He provides a lot of lights in his buildings, which is really good. Building Scenics, I have several of their buildings, obviously. But anyway, a lot of their buildings have lights in them. And some of the buildings that I've built over the years have lights in them. But I really want to add a lot more light so that when I turn those overhead lights off, I get a lot of ambient light from the city. Because let's face it, in the big city, you get a lot of ambient light. Even when it's dark, the city is glowing. And I really want this city to kind of glow both from the bottom as well as whatever moonlight I have working from the top. So anyway, that's pretty much the update for what I've got. Until I get a lot more lights and some of the scenery in here, don't really have too much more to go on.
Hey, will you give us a couple details? You give us a couple details for guys who haven't seen your layout. It's ON 30, of course, like you were talking about.
Yes.
What size of room are you in, and what era are you focusing on?
I'm in a 22 by 28 foot room minus some of the wall thicknesses. So approximately, I have 5 peninsulas in the railroad. You're on the over wall now, so you can kind of tell. The far wall over where the buildings are that we were talking about is my main yard. It is a double-ended yard. Normally, I don't believe in double-ended yards because they waste a lot of space, but I happen to have a 22-foot wall there, so I could put in a fairly large yard. And I can actually have 2 operators, one working on the east end and one working on the west end. And when I designed the railroad, what I tried to do was I have a peninsula that's coming from the far wall on the far side of this one big rig camera here. I have another one that's coming out here. This peninsula is actually coming from the other side, as is the one that's kind of behind the camera that's set up there now. So I have peninsulas that come 2 from this side of the room and 2 from that side of the room. So as my yard masters work, this one on this end of the yard is going to send out 2 jobs. The yard master on this end is going to send out 2 yards. So I divided my work as much as I possibly could. I normally try to make sure that operators do not have to know my railroad. I have gone to a lot of railroads where they say, oh, you want to throw that switch? Well, twist the trunk of this tree. Oh, that switch? Oh, move that sign. Just flip it right or left. It's mounted on a toggle switch. How can anybody know that you have to twist the trunk of a tree or move a sign or reach underneath? I went to one railroad to operate, and they gave me the start cards for it. And I looked around and I couldn't see anything. And this was one of the maze-out railroads where you had to walk through a bunch of aisles. And I asked one of the guys, I said, where's that? They said, well, it's 3 aisles over and it's down on the ground. This guy had a 4-level layout. And this yard was literally a foot off the floor. And not marked very well. But anyway, I try to eliminate those kinds of frustrations. So in this railroad, everything is about 36, 37 inches tall. I don't have any grades. Everything can be seen. Everything's out in the open, except for one track back underneath my city scene back there. And I really couldn't see a way to avoid it, but there's no switching there. You're just running through. The other requirement that John Lawrence and I have always had on our railroads is that if your train disappears, stand still, it will come back to you. I don't like railroads where, oh, my railroad went in here and it's going to come out 3 hours over there. No, no, no. That's another thing where you have to understand the railroad in order to be able to operate. And to me, that makes it very cliquish. And I'm sorry if I'm stepping on any toes, but those are just my viewpoints. I think the railroad needs to be friendly. I think the railroad needs to reflect the personality of the owner. There are a lot of operating schemes where owners are very, very strict about what they do. They follow the operating rules. At this railroad, I don't really have any rules except take your cars out, put them where they're supposed to be, and come back. To me, it's more about the camaraderie and the fellowship and the visiting and having a good time and sitting down afterwards and having cookies. Those of you who don't know, Fran used to be a Betty Crocker Test Kitchen cook, so we have great cookies at the end. But we have cookies, we have Kool-Aid, we have soda pop, whatever it happens to be at the end, and we talk about whatever. Sometimes it might be railroading, sometimes it might be cars, it could be anything. I just want people to have a good time when they come here to the railroad. So anyway, I am an ON30. I changed from ON3 because I really think Gil Freitag is a genius. Gil lives down in Houston, Texas, and Gil used to run every week. And he literally ran the journal boxes out of his brass cars and his brass engines. Now, he was in HO and HON3, but still, even 25 years ago, we're talking about running journals out of $300, $400, $500 engines. That's expensive. So I made the switch to ON30 simply because I can buy Bachmann and other people's engines, hodgepodge. I can take an HO mechanism, which I have over here, a streetcar, in urban car, and I can build engines that will be much cheaper to maintain and to replace than an ON3 brass engine, which is what I used to have. So to me, it's just more practical. Obviously, the narrow gauges did not ever run in Kansas City. We did have a Shea, actually, that switched Folgers coffee. We had a huge Folgers coffee operation in Kansas City up until about 3 or 4 months ago when they closed. But it ran up, I think, almost a 5 or 6% grade, climbing from the bottoms up into downtown where the Folgers coffee plant actually was located. So we had a Shea here, which is pretty wild and crazy. But at any rate, we can do a lot of things, but obviously narrow gauge was not one of the things we had in Kansas City. I don't care. My narrow gauge has survived, and it switches everywhere in Kansas City. I am running NCE. Everything is wired. If I had known about the battery system, either SCAB or Tam Valley, I probably would not have wired the railroad. It's a lot of trouble. I have a lot of different control systems for turnouts, mainly because I have a friend who makes some turnout controls. I also like using the rabbits from Tony's, I believe it is, or the Switch 8s from NCE, because you can actually use those on your controller, or you can switch them locally, or I could switch them back with the dispatcher if I put one in. So everything's wired up. That way, when I run the batteries, I'm actually charging the entire time I'm running. If we get a short, the battery engines still continue to run, and nothing really shuts down. That's pretty much it. I have fluorescent lights in here. I have 9 pockets, I believe it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 pockets of light, 16 feet each. I'm 71, so I want a lot of light. I want to be able to see what's going on, and I don't want anybody else to come in here and not be able to see. Nothing more frustrating than trying to read numbers with low light levels. So anyway.
How are you getting that blue light effect that you were showing off on a previous hangout? Do you have blue strips?
Those are the Chinese LEDs, $5 for 15 feet. I've put 2 strips in each one of the pockets. They're just, here, I'll turn the camera up and I think, let's see if this one will do it. Switch back to this one because it'll do a better shot of it. And I don't know if it'll show it up over here. Ah, whoopsie, crazy busy. No, I can't get that. Maybe you can get it over there in the corner.
But you've hit them up in those pockets. Yep.
What's that?
But you hit it up in the pockets. That's handy enough.
Yes, I did. I put it not in the pocket, but I don't know. Make sure I'm in the camera here, I think. Come on. I've lost my picture now. Come on, give me a picture. Please, please, come on. Yeah, anyway, along the edge, on the outside, I have strung the lights. You can almost see it over here on this far end. I didn't try and actually mount it above my cracked ice diffusers. They're actually just mounted kind of, if you can see my finger, there we go. They're mounted, a little delay on this camera, so it's hard to do. But they're mounted right along that edge. So they're out in the open showing, which is the best I could do. If I put them up behind the cracked ice, it diffused them way too much, and you couldn't even tell they were on.
Yeah, the LEDs don't have a very good throw range. That seems to be the problem with them. But when you had those blue lights on, when I seen those recently, they seem to light that room up pretty well.
Yeah, and these strips are red, green, and blue. I tried them with pure blue, and one problem was that all of my white signs fluoresced. It looked like I had, black light on in here. So I've gone back to having all three lights on, and I've got them at about 80%, so they just backed off a little bit. So I have pretty much a full spectrum, but it's at a very low level. So I get that kind of night dusky look, which is what I want.
Absolutely.
At some point, one of our people here in town operates nights all the time, and the guys bring flashlights in, and that's okay. It is a railroad that does not work by switch lists on individual cars. You're running cuts of cars and full trains around and back into a yard. So it's what the operators, I think, would call bridge traffic. It's much easier to do than trying to operate with individual car numbers. So since I want to really switch car numbers and do actual switching operations, I don't really want to get the light level down where the guys cannot read the numbers. Obviously, if we switch in the evening, they're going to have to carry flashlights. And I don't know if I'll ever get that as an operating possibility or if it'll just be for shows when people come in. Which I do want to give one plug. The NMRA National Convention will be here in Kansas City next summer. Since the one in Florida just ended, I can now talk about Kansas City. But I will be on the tour, I hope. If I'm not on the official tour with the convention, I will have flyers and hand them out at the convention, and anyone is welcome to come by and visit the railroad. So anyway, enough said on that. Hope you guys come to Kansas City next summer. We'll be open, and I'll try to get Fran to make some cookies, maybe entice you to come over and take a look. And hopefully we'll be a whole lot further along on the road as well.
Well, I was sold already on Kansas City, but the cookies are, I won't turn those down either. So.
Yeah, well, I got to talk her into doing it. She'll have to make a few hundred to do that, but I hope anyway. I don't. We may not get but 2 or 3 visitors. Who knows? Another thing on the technical thing that I'm changing now is I am putting in multiple colored wires. I try to always pick one color that does one thing. All of my frogs are wired with green wires. I know that's a no-no with electronics guys, but all my frogs, if you see a green wire, it's coming from the frog. Black and white wires my tracks. And then I'm going to have a telephone cable type cable that actually has a little heavier wire in it, but I'll have one running down each peninsula. And at the foot of the peninsula, where the peninsula starts, I will have a 1.5 volt, a 3 volt, a 6 volt, and a 12 volt transformer on 4 sets of 2 wires each. And those will run the length, And that way, when I go to put building lights in, no matter where I'm putting it, I will have a voltage that's correct. And my 3-volt lead will actually come from a Woodland Scenics power hub, so that I can dial in the intensity of the LEDs then that are hooked into that 3-volt circuit.
Absolutely.
I have some older buildings that were doing with 1.5 and 12s, so I've got to put in some other circuitry, but the majority of everything I put in nowadays is going to be LED, and I will power it through the Woodland Scenics hub. I've talked about it before. I think that's the one thing in the Woodland Scenics system of electronics that is just more than worth it, because you can dial the intensity of that LED, and you don't have to have any resistors or anything else. You can just hook your LED directly to their controller.
Yeah, you've done a real good job explaining that. I think that's one of the best kept secrets, rather, in the Woodland Scenics offering is it's not just their lights, but that hub more specifically. And Johnny brought Chris on too. We've kind of brought Chris, tried to get him over to the dark side of the 2-rail stuff, away from the 3-rail stuff. That's been an ongoing comedy with us, but he's been talking about doing some ON 30 recently. So I think you've inspired a few of us to take it more seriously.
You know, in terms of cost, I think it really is a good move if budget and running whatever are in your scheme, because you really can't afford to run the journals out of a lot of these cars. If you're a brass collector, you're running some expensive stuff, and if you're going to run even every month, and I hope I live for another 20 years or so in this house, that's a lot of running. And when we used to put railroads in restaurants, I knew that they were going to run from about 9 or 10 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. You're talking about 12 hours. And if it only takes them 3 minutes, which is a long time, most of the railroads took a lot less than that, but if it takes 3 minutes to make a circuit, and a circuit is 100 feet, you start doing the math and you find out these guys are running real miles, I mean 5,280 feet, you know, almost per 2 or 3 hours. And if you put that in a 10 or 12 hour day, these cars are going a long way. Had one guy that ran G-scale, and we went in one time, and his gondola, which was a Bachmann, had plastic wheels on it. The wheels on the outside of his loop, and we always told him to turn them and run them the other way every month, which they never did, but his wheels on the outside were yay big. His wheels on the inside were like, you know, a fourth that. He had literally worn the plastic away so badly. So you really have to give some consideration when you start running a lot to wear and tear. Because these things, all the forces that work on the real railroad work on our railroad. Granted, it may be slightly less, but the forces are working.
How, Miles, how many more Centra buildings are you going to put on that layout?
How many more what?
Centra buildings, the backdrop buildings that you're putting up.
I'll finish up the Kansas Stockyards building. I'll finish up this building. I've got to put caps on it yet. I think you can see what I'm talking about. Yeah. I'll finish up the Caterpillar building here. And then I'm not sure. I've got a street that comes across here. And I want that. We had a lot of viaducts in Kansas City, especially down through the bottoms, because we actually had a railroad, an interurban line, that actually disappeared and went into a tunnel and came out in the middle of the bluffs. I mean, it was still 75 feet or 100 feet up the bluff, but it came out and then went on to a trestle, an incline down into the bottoms. But anyway, I want this street to come across and actually be elevated here over the top. So I don't know. I don't know that these buildings are going to be where they are now. I'm still kind of trying to feel my way through. I'm pretty much set on this. I give credit to John Lawrence. He designed this one, and this peninsula has changed very little from his designs. Matter of fact, it hasn't changed hardly at all. That one I had, that peninsula I had originally, I've had it probably 10 years or so, and I've changed it a little bit. I'm going to change it a little bit more. I will have a super huge building. Let's see if I can bring it up here. I want to do, oops, I hope it took that change on you. Let's see here in a minute. Are you guys on a camera that's moving? I can't tell.
Yeah.
Okay, good. As soon as my thing comes up here. This big opening here, I want a building there. Because when as I said before, I want it so that when you come in here, you feel like these buildings are above you. So I want Western Auto, which is a famous building to us here in Kansas City, because it's square on two sides and then it's curved on the backside. The tracks actually follow around. And when my track comes around here, I want this to be Western Auto and up above your head. So you can see over Sunshine Biscuit, another building we have here, but you can't see over Western Auto. And then I want some other building stuck up in here, at least as high as the Lexington or close to it, so that I get this wall all the way down this first initial aisleway as you come in, so that you can't see the whole railroad at one time. One of my things has always been that I don't really like it when I walk into a railroad and I see the whole thing at once. I really do like the maze railroad concept, and I'm trying to create it with my buildings this time. Used to be easy because I was in Colorado modeling, and I just made my mountains big enough that you had to walk around my canyons. All the railroads I've built in the past have had 7 and 8 foot mountains, and you were walking on the floor beside rock walls that went all the way. I don't have that luxury here. I have to do it with buildings. So I want these buildings to be tall enough so they dwarf you, and so you can't see my railroad until you work your way around through the room.
You know, it might be an easier effect. I've listened to you talk about this valley and effect, and I love that, and the maze effect. I agree with you wholeheartedly on all the concepts, of course, but I think it's probably easier to create the valley effect with structures than it is with floor to ceiling mountains because of the slope. You can make a valley, you know, these peninsulas and the valley of the buildings effect in a much smaller room because you have vertical structures, as opposed to a mountain that's 6 foot tall is also stepping out into the room 4, 5, 6 feet.
That's right. I mean, I'm not exaggerating when I say that the layout I was building in Louisville, when we finished the mountain structure in the room, and it was a little larger, it was 22 by 35. I bit off more than I could chew there. It was, you know, we always want a little bit more track. You know, how much is enough? Just a little more. That was too much. But we literally had 6,000 pounds of plaster in that room. I had between 8 and 14 guys coming over every Monday night helping me build. And we were slapping up molds, rock, latex rubber molds that were 2 foot by 2 foot, 4 foot square each, 4 square feet each, to put it up. And it, you know, it would take 15, 20 minutes for that to hard up, and we'd do it again. But in that almost 5-year period, we laid literally 6,000 pounds of plaster. So yes, to your point, I can build these buildings a whole lot faster than I can lay up that plaster, and in a whole lot less weight, and with a whole lot less work and everything else. So yes, to me, it's much easier to do it this way. Even building it with the DPM modular system would be somewhat faster than trying to do the rock molds. I still think the rock molds look good, but nonetheless, it's a whole lot easier.
I tell you what, I love that Sentra way you're doing that. I really do. And Andy knows I'm in the middle of designing my layout, and actually one key element of my layout is using your method, because I like it so much, because there's so much, and we've talked about it actually, I believe, the way I'm going to do that and make it 3D. And because it would just take too much time to physically model it, because there's so much detail within these buildings that you can't. I mean, you could certainly build it if you want, but it's going to take you so much time to build it. Where you could get the same level of effect, I think, by using a high digital image printed on the Sentra paper, and still get the visual effect that you would get out of a model that you would build.
It's better.
That's right.
I mean,
yeah, exactly.
You talk about photorealism. We try for photorealism. How much more photorealistic is something than a photo of the real thing? That's
the example that I've been making lately, you know, both on Trade Masters and here, is that we work for years. I mean, I've tried so hard, and Andy does. Anybody that's trying to do the prototype modeling concept where we want it to be real, you're trying to copy Mother Nature. You're trying to copy the weathering that occurs in Mother Nature. Man, that's Mother Nature. That's a photograph of her work for the last 70 years on that building. And I didn't have to do a thing except take the photograph and print it out in Photoshop. So if it takes me 2 hours or whatever to lay out that building, that's a fraction of the time that it would take me to try and recreate that building and that weathering and that look in a real, like this DPM piece, in a real three-dimensional model. And again, as some of the guys were suggesting on the YouTube chat group, if I'd come in and add a fire escape, if I'd make a three-dimensional sign instead of just laying it flat, how much more realism can I get? Because the eye gets fooled, and we're all about Disney, really. I mean, even though we're trying to weather and make things look absolutely 100% right, it's still the illusion. It's still the Disney, the magic kingdom type thing. We want to capture that look and make people look at it and say, wow.
Yeah. I mean, I'm here at home in my house on a video chat with you, and I think Andy would agree. Those buildings just pop at you, and I'm hundreds of miles away from you. I can only imagine what they look like in real person.
It's really funny. I'll pan over here for just a second and show you. But this TWA building, we have a lot of buildings, of course, that are on the register and all that kind of stuff. This building is now an office building. TWA, obviously, for the younger people that are watching, it was an airline, very successful for a long time. And like I say, it was a 3-story building. And I took this, I took a photograph of this building and took it to one of our railroad lunches. We all get together on Wednesdays, and about 14 of us, and we talk trains and girls and whatever else we happen to talk about at the time. But nonetheless, I had a photograph of this, and Larry Alford, whose layout we visited a few months ago, Larry kept saying, it's three-dimensional. No, Larry, it's flat. No, that one's three-dimensional. I said, no, it's a photograph of a photograph. It's flat. And this is, it's flat. But your eye, because of all this that's going on, it just makes you think, wow, it's there.
But you got shadows. Real, actual shadows. We've watched Charles Kirk paint shadows.
It's impossible. I'm sorry. I can come close maybe, but I can never really get it. And takes a little time, and the other thing is I'm really kind of having fun with some of my mother. I'm really pretty proud of her. She was one of the first women to have a private office, and we're talking in 1940. And Mr. Prinz, who I showed the building earlier, of Stern, Slegman and Prinz. Stern, Slegman and Prinz made ladies' clothing, and so did Nellie Dawn, which is Betty Rose. So anyway, Betty Rose was a product of Stern, Slegman and Prinz. It was one of their lines, so I put the Betty Rose logo down here. Anyway, my mother had a separate office in the bottoms, and she, the efficiency expert, decided how the patterns were going to lay out on the fabric so that the bias, the direction of the fabric was correct, and so that they got the most out of the material, which I thought was really pretty cool. But anyway, so I put a Stern, Slegman, Prinz building in, even though it was not in the bottoms. So that was Kansas City. It's just kind of more downtown. And then Nellie Dawn, if I can get the here, Nellie Dawn building, which is this one. It was not this building either, but I went online and I picked up the logo, which was that. And I decided it would look a whole lot better if I had the end coming down. In Photoshop, you can pick a brush size. I don't know if you can see that or not. Here, come closer. You can pick a brush size, which I did, and I just caught that stroke and dropped it around, and it makes it look like it was actually there and supposed to be there.
What are you going to do with that quarter? That you've got the camera over there close, and I know you have the cyclorama coved effect. What's your idea for your backdrop for that? Or are you just going to have a shot out into the distance?
That's a good question. When you get an answer, let me know. No. I don't know. In the layout in Louisville, I hit on something that really worked, and that was I painted a background around that looked like a valley that was
a vanishing point.
A vanishing point. There's a place in Cincinnati where you're driving by on the south side of Cincinnati, and you look across the the ground. You actually look across the river and everything, but it looks like the two hills coming from the side and drop down, and that really looked great. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I think what I want to do is a three-dimensional. I've got a big enough building to show you. This one is actually, I use this one a lot. This is a paper building, one of my first ones, and this one's actually stuck. Where is it? It's got a bubble on. Oh, anyway, I want to put a building out this way, back this way, because if it comes out, I can still keep my streets, keeping streets lined up becomes a consideration too, because if I all of a sudden put a 45 in here, it looks weird.
Absolutely.
All my streets are this way. So I need a building that comes in here and meets a couple of them. Back in the corner where, spin this around because I've already started to do it back here.
AJ in the chat said you could put the St. Louis Arch back in the distance back there behind it.
Yeah, I've already started to do it. See if I can get this thing to here. So I'm having to look at everything. In that corner now, I've already started to do something. We have, down in the bottom, they have a lot of what I would call connectors. I don't know what the technical name for them is. But this guy right here, I don't know if it's getting out or not. Anyway, it's a building that came out of the side of a building, across the alley and connected. You could drive under it, and it was like 4 stories tall. So what I think I'm going to do is try to make a little bit of a three-dimensional elevator similar to this one, because this is an actual three-dimensional model. Set it in here and put a connector across and make this track disappear back in underneath it in that corner. But I think every corner is going to have to be treated just a little bit differently, excuse me, in order to make it look believable.
Well, to hide that track as it comes back to that termination point back there too. So the end of that track disappears. It could be going another half mile to other loading docks. Yep.
That's right. It's technically just going to that one building to Mr. Dell's potatoes, but it doesn't make a difference. If it looks like it disappears back in there, so much better. Just so long as I kind of hide that corner back in there. It's hidden pretty well, like you say, because it's a cyclorama. But then when you put something in front of it, then how do you keep that illusion of depth, that curving, when you're putting, something that creates shadows in front? So the trick is to put something that has shadows in front without casting shadows on the background that call attention to the fact that the background is there.
I use your idea extensively of tree flats, essentially cutting the trees off and putting them against the backdrop so they don't cast shadows. I try for that effect. Yep.
Yeah, I think that works pretty well. And over on the other side where I've got the cemetery, I've already started to do that. That corner won't be so bad, but the other 3 corners I kind of have to get a little creative on in order to make things work on it.
Now, Miles, I think you told us, but in the Hangouts a couple of times, but you said that this method of doing this is actually fairly reasonable in terms of cost.
Yes, it really is. I'm paying about $10 a running foot. So give or take, I'm paying about $3 to $3.50 a square foot for the prints. So, if most of you are in HO, and you are, this gauge building that I held up, if I get this thing to turn around a little bit, this gauge building that I held up earlier, this thing is not even 2 square feet. So you're looking at, probably $5, $6 to print. So really pretty reasonable. And even for these ones that I have that are 5 feet long, I'm paying $50 approximately for them or less. Tom's price is really good. And I do need, before we sign off, to give you Tom's information so anybody that wants to can contact him. He's with a place here in Kansas City called Harvest Graphics, and he does an absolutely fantastic job. And he will ship any place in the country. All you have to do is send him your Photoshop file, and he'll print it.
So he's going to be dealing with a lot more model railroaders now.
Well, I think so, yeah. Give me 1 second. Johnny, you got an announcement or something you can do, and I'll go get the information on Tom.
Yeah. Well, while Miles is doing that, we'll go ahead and just do a little public service announcement here. Like everybody, go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check the show schedules. The Tuesday and Wednesday shows are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The Tuesday and Thursday shows are at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And also, while you're there, be sure to click on the EMAG icon and sign up for a email notification when the EMAG comes out. JD and his team do a great job on that. And let's see what we got coming up the rest of this month here. All right, we got Miles' show obviously tonight. We'll have the Thursday night show this week. Next week we really only have the Thursday night show, but on the 19th of August we will have the live show with Big Bill and Barry. And then we will, on August 22nd, have the Fine Scale Bill. And that's going to wind up this month right there. But we got some good shows here. But we do have the Thursday night show every week. So that's every Thursday night at 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. You back, Miles?
Yep, I'm back. I'm looking for fish now.
All righty, Miles is back, so.
Oh, excuse me. The person who does my printing is Tom Novosky. It's Novasky. That's Novasky. He's at Harvest Graphics. And his phone number is 913-205-8904. That's 913. That's Kansas City area code 205-8904. And again, he can take a Photoshop document. He can do JPEGs. He can do. I give him TIFFs, but you give him JPEG, TIFF. What's the other one that you can't change? I can't think of it. Need help from Andy. Yeah, he's got a whole slew of extensions he can take. This place is this humongous print shop. I'm sure that I am a drop in the bucket. I think first of all, they have, I think it's either 2 or 3 huge Heidelberg presses that run full newspaper-sized sheets at the rate of about 17,000 an hour. So this is a huge printing operation. Their graphic shop that I take advantage of has a 5x9 plotter printer, and that printer prints in UV ink, which is what's on here, so it's impervious. I've tried water, glue gone, nothing affects this ink. It's absolutely fantastic. But anyway, that's printed on the plotter printer, and then they cut them down to the sizes that I need from the 4x8 sheets of Sintra. But he will ship, does a fantastic job of wrapping even when I pick it up locally. Can't say enough things about Tom. He's not a model editor, but he really is kind of enthusiastic about it. He thinks this is all kind of neat. We have talked about some really crazy things, like he can print on anything. He can even print on plastic or glass. So we've been talking about printing on mylar or printing on plexiglass. If you had a really great photograph of a lake, a stream, a river, that we could actually print on the plexiglass, or we could print on what we call it, the wavy glass, and actually have a lake printed. And how much easier is that to do even than pouring the resins or any of the other materials that we normally do to make water features.
Wow. Boy, printing has changed everything. I was fascinated with your idea of getting up high in a structure and taking pictures of the street and then printing those streets and laying them out. I'm in love with that idea.
I think one of the hardest things to do for a modeler anyway, outside of maybe water, is to create a street, because you've got to create all that weathering of the tracks and the paths, and people don't stop to think about it, but you look at a street, I don't care whether it's concrete or asphalt, it's very nearly the same color.
Yeah.
there are different colors in there. But getting that look and getting that color right is extremely difficult. But yes, if you could go up in a hotel room sometime in your conference or whatever and take a picture of the street, then put it in Photoshop, square it up, and just print, 10, 12 feet, whatever I need of street, and paste it down. And wow, how much easier. My lines are already there. They're already sharp. They're crisp. They're clean. They're marked off like it should be. My expansion cracks in the sidewalk and in the street are in the right places. And this stuff is amazing. At the 3 millimeters or the 1/8 of an inch is actually about a 6-inch curb in O gauge. And if I would cut it exact and print it in, I could drop it about halfway and make it a 6-inch curb in HO by just simply offsetting them a little bit. So the possibilities of making a street out of this or a road, pretty incredible. And that's going to be my next step to do on this thing, by the way, is to actually make some streets and roads where I want the streets to go along on the city scenes.
Very cool.
Shooting down from a hotel room down on the roof, you have so much detail on the roof with piping and walkways and air conditioners and everything else. And even if you didn't put the photograph down on your roof, if you just even had that photograph as a reference, where you could come in, and I have cast, yes, I'm a moderator, yes, I cheat. These were out from, I think, Hecky or somebody. These are their air conditioning units. And I've just cast up about 2 dozen of them. And I'm just going to put those in on top of that same building that I showed you earlier. But, any kind of details that you can add and any kind of reference photographs you can have, so much the better to make it look real.
Alrighty. Miles, if you would, email me that information so I can put it in the description on the video too.
Yes, I will.
And we'll post it up on the YouTube page also.
All right, can you post a photograph?
Yes.
All right, I've got little cards that I hand out when I do the clinics that have his name, and it has a sample of the Sentra on it. So I'll just take a picture of that and send it to you, and that way it'll have the information and the sample right beside it.
Okay, that'll be good. That'll be good. That'll be real good.
Well, your layout has really come along since, just like in however the last few weeks or something since you showed it just coming on a regular hangout. I know you'd had that little stagnation period, but I can see the excitement. I do the same thing. I think most of us do that, is we get a little, you get these little moments of stagnation, but then when you get the inspiration back, and boy, that's exciting and motivating. It's pushed me to tear into finishing my peninsula as well. So,
well, you and I both, we're both kind of into the high-tech type stuff. I'm not really good with computers, but when it comes to video stuff, I've really kind of gotten into it. One of the things that, this has nothing to do with railroading, this is just me, but I am really worried as I get older that I don't keep exercising my mind and finding out about new things. I talked earlier, just so everybody else out there knows, we tried for the first night, this camera that I'm on right now is actually wireless. That's how I've been able to roll it around. It's going to give us a lot more freedom when we go to do shows, because I don't have to trail cords in the aisleways and everything else now. We just hook it up and go. So I think this is going to be a real boom. But I really do want to keep up with whatever's going on. This is brand new technology to me. I don't know if there's new to anybody else. And I should give credit to Paul Coates. Paul Coates is a railroader here in town. He owns one of the biggest advertising agencies called Iris, if anybody needs an ad agency. And I called Paul and I said, I need to get this thing printed, how am I going to do it? At the time I was looking for a paper print. He says, no. He says, call my buddy Tom, and Tom will fix you up. Well, tell me what. Between Paul and Tom, I got fixed up. This is just absolutely fantastic technology and fantastic stuff, as far as I'm concerned anyway.
Well, Ralph says it took another 10 years off from you, so I would measure that as success. So,
yeah, and you're right. I have got a lot of enthusiasm, and I was really, really almost depressed because I just could not make this thing look right, and it was very, very frustrating. And I know that there are a lot of other railroaders out there that have different problems that are getting to them, and then all of a sudden you find that one thing that solves that problem, and man, you're back up, and the world is right again.
Oh, you could drive for a while. It'll fuel you. You know, that's what it does for me too. So
Yeah, that's right.
Well, tell you what, we done got an hour and 15 minutes here. You got anything you want to wrap it up with, Miles?
No, I didn't even know what I was going to say. I didn't even know I could do 30 minutes, so we got a little long-winded. But I hope people give it a try. I hope people realize, you know, really the possibilities of what you can do with some of this photographic stuff. Because to me, when you can do both three-dimensional and background models, wow, streets, waterways, you know, all this stuff, it opens up all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah. All right, well, great job, really. And that Centra's looking really good. Those buildings you're doing are looking really good.
In 2018.
Yeah. Well, I plan on being there, that's for sure.
we'll be there.
So we'll want some of those cookies.
Yes, sir.
Ken finds out I promised those cookies she'll shoot me, but that's okay. We'll make it work.
Yeah.
We'll not tell on you.
Tell her, just be sure and tell her you got 5 more shows you got to do, so she can't kill you yet.
That's right.
Hey, one more question. Ralph just asked while we're at it. Well, I want to make sure we covered the Citra material too. So Ralph said, "What are you doing where the Citra meets the ground? Is there any different process you need to make that meet
the ground?"
No, that was also one of the big problems that I had. Is that if you use a paper building like I held up a little bit ago, I don't know where I threw it, where it went. That paper building that I had a minute ago here. If I go to plant this building here and I'm going to spray scenic cement or whatever on my ground cover because I want to hide that joint where the building.
You got to hold it up, Miles.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've said it many times. Buildings don't float, and my pet peeve is I go into railroads and they're floating. You need ground cover, you need grass, you need something up against this, because this building's too heavy to float. So at any rate, my problem was if I was going to use this paper, that it's going to run. That printed ink on this paper will never hold up. That's why I mentioned earlier, I've tried water, I've tried scenic cement, I've tried Goo Gone, all kinds of things on this, and nothing takes this ink off. So I can actually come up against that building and scenic right up against it. Now, I'll move the camera for just a second to show you, but I think we can get this to come in tight enough to do it. Little whole picture phone there. Here's that building that I made that has the real, the Centra on it. And all I did was I took a stick that I think it's a little more than a quarter, so it's a little more than a foot. But I set it down. This is about 6 inches thick. It's about 1/8 of an inch. So this is I think a 12 by 4 or 4 by 12 piece of wood that I just painted gray to be my foundation. And it's relieved back in just a little bit to give me a shadow line here. So it looks like a foundation and like the bricks hanging there on that foundation. But that's all I would do, and then just sink right up against it. I have not finished the scenery here. This is just sitting there. But I'll come in and I'll actually put that scenery up against that and hide that bottom where it comes and touches. I think that's a pretty good picture for you to look at.
Looks like that works.
I don't like this floating. We want to get that. It looks much better. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Looks much better when I start putting ground up against that, and you can't see that joint. All of a sudden, it looks much more believable.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was just a good question. I didn't want to miss that one. I also have that pet peeve.
The good thing is I could take this brick all the way to the ground, and it would make no difference whatsoever because this stuff will not be affected by my water-based, adhesives. But in this case, I really wanted kind of a foundation to show, so I put the board on there, which I'll do on most of these guys. Most of them had either a concrete base or they had some different pattern.
Alrighty. Well, I guess if that's it, we'll wrap this one up. Got anything else, Chris or Andy?
Thanks, Miles.
Hey, no problem. Had a good time. As always.
As always.
Me too.
Alrighty. And as always, I'm not ready. Alrighty. Want everybody to go to YouTubeModelBuilders.com. There you can check the schedules for the shows we have each month. Tuesday and Wednesday shows are always at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. The Thursday and the Saturday once a month live show is at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Yeah, I just lost my train of thought. Also, be sure to click on the eMag. Sign up for email notifications, so when the eMag comes out, you'll be notified of that. It's PDF, so it's easy to download, read on a wide variety of devices. Just had one that came out about 2 weeks ago now, and JD and his team did a great job on it. They hit it out of the park there for sure. Alright, the next show we have is going to be August the 19th. That's going to be the Bill and Barry live show. Of course, we got the Thursday night show every week at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern. So with that said, we will definitely see you on Thursday. My week is really getting turned around here. But I'll see you Thursday night, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. So y'all have a good week, and we shall see you later. Have a good one.